Welcome to 21st Sports Recap and Reaction for the Detroit Lions at the St. Louis Rams in their Week 14 matchup played December 13th, 2015. We're going to go over the scores and the stats and give our breakdown and analysis. So this was a pretty low-scoring game. It was a lot of defense, especially in the first half, as these two teams were just trading punts back and forth, punt, all the way into the second quarter until with about 5 minutes left before halftime, Trumaine Johnson intercepted Matthew Stafford and ran it back 58 yards for the pick six. Greg Zuerlein added the extra point, and it was 7-0 Rams over the Lions. The Lions would end up with an interception themselves before halftime as Slay would come up with the pick, but they were not able to turn that into any points, and the game went to halftime. So 7-0 at the break. Then in the third quarter, about midway through, Stafford hit Golden Tate for a 9-yard touchdown. Matt Prater added the extra point, and this game was tied at 7 apiece. But then with about 4 minutes left in the third, Todd Gurley scored on a 5-yard touchdown run. Zuerlein added the extra point, and it was 14-7 as the Rams took back the lead. Then in the fourth quarter, less than 3 minutes in, Gurley scored for the second time in the second half, this time a 15-yard touchdown run. Zuerlein added the extra point, and now the Rams were up 21-7. But then with 2 minutes left to play, Matthew Stafford hit Golden Tate as they connected the second time for a touchdown in this game. This one a 2-yard touchdown pass. Matt Prater added the extra point, and now the Lions were within a score with the score St. Louis 21, Detroit 14. And so that was just before the 2-minute warning. And so now the Lions would go for an onside kick, and they recovered. So they recovered, and then an incomplete pass on first down would bring this game to the 2-minute warning. Then coming out of the 2-minute warning, Stafford went to Jones. He picked up 7 yards, and then that made it 3rd and 3 on the St. Louis 46, and an incomplete pass would bring up 4th down. So now it's 4th and 3 on the St. Louis 46, less than 2 minutes left to play, down by 7. And Stafford fumbles the ball. Of course, they recovered, but it was an incomplete pass. So he fumbled the ball, and he threw an incomplete pass, and so that turned over the ball on downs. And now the Rams would take over, and they had the ball on their own 46. Gurley ran the ball for 1 yard. The Lions used their first timeout, and on 2nd and 9, Gurley ran it 21 yards for a first down. The Lions burned their second timeout. The Rams then gave it to Cunningham for 4 yards, as Gurley was a little tired after that run, as he had been running all over the Lions. The Lions used their final timeout, and then after Cunningham ran for 1 more yard, Keenum took a knee, and the Rams win this game 21-14 to improve their record to 5-8 on the season. They're now above 500 at home with a record of 4-3 in St. Louis, and the Lions are just 1-5 on the road. They're 4-9 on the season. So the Rams come away with a big win. And then Todd Gurley, another huge performance. He had those 2 touchdowns in the second half. He had 140 rushing yards in this game, 147 total yards overall. But he had 140 yards off of 16 carries. And, of course, those 2 touchdowns. Case Keenum was 14-22 with 124 passing yards, no touchdowns, and 1 interception. Of course, that interception was at the end of the first half. Didn't result in any points for the Lions, so it didn't really cost them. Tavon Austin had 4 carries for 40 yards. And I already said Todd Gurley, how he had 140 yards off of 16 carries and those 2 touchdowns. And Cunningham also 3 carries for just 14 yards, but that was, of course, more at the end of the game just to run out the clock. Kenny Britt had 2 receptions for 35 yards, and Marquez had 3 receptions for 32 yards. Tavon Austin also had 3 catches for 19 yards, giving him 59 total yards on the game. Matthew Stafford was 30 for 46 for Detroit with 245 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Of course, that interception went back the other way for 6 points. Joique Bell had 7 carries for 50 yards. Amir Abdullah had 7 carries for 23 yards. Golden Tate was the game's leading receiver with 9 receptions for 60 yards and 2 touchdowns. Theo Riddick had 7 catches for 44 yards. to go along with his 18 rushing yards off of 3 carries, as he ended up with 72 total yards on the day. And Bell also had 25 yards off of 2 catches, which gave him 75 total yards. And Amir Abdullah 2 catches for 21 yards, as he ended up with 44 total yards in the game. The kickers in this game, Greg Zerline was 3 for 3 on the extra points, did not attempt a field goal. Matt Prater 2 for 2 on the extra points, did not attempt a field goal as well. And for the defense, Aaron Donald, 3 sacks for St. Louis. And of course, Trumaine Johnson with that pick 6 off of that interception. Brockers also had a sack as well. And for Detroit, Ziggy Ansah, what would a game be without a Ziggy Ansah sack, as he had 1 sack in this game. And Darius Slay had that interception before halftime, as I said earlier. But we look at the team stats, 22 first downs for Detroit, 15 first downs for St. Louis. On third down, the Lions were 5 for 13, 38%. They went for it once on fourth, did not convert, of course. That was at the end of the game when they turned the ball over on downs. And that pretty much ended the game for the Lions. And then on third down for the Rams, they were 4 for 11, 36%. Total net yards, 331 for Detroit, 317 for St. Louis. But on the ground, the Rams netted 203 and the Lions 111. So the Rams, 7 yards per rushing play for St. Louis, as they were just running all over the Lions. Of course, the Lions, 5.6 yards per running play, as they were having success on the ground as well. And then net passing yards, 220 for Detroit. Stafford sacked 4 times, losing 25 yards. And for the Rams, they netted 114 through the air. Case Keenum sacked once for a loss of 10 yards. The penalties in this game, both teams had 5 penalties, 48 penalty yards against the Rams, 45 penalty yards against Detroit. Both teams had 1 fumble, but they did not lose either, as the Lions recovered their fumble, the Rams recovered their fumble. So they didn't lose the ball to the fumble. And then in the red zone, both teams were 2 for 2. They're both 100% in the red zone. And the time of possession, 33 minutes, 50 seconds for Detroit, 26 minutes, 10 seconds for St. Louis. So this game was very close, about as close as could be. And really the difference in this game was Trumaine Johnson with that pick 6. He also shut down Megatron, as Calvin Johnson Jr. only had 1 catch for 16 yards in this game. And like I said, Johnson running that one back, that only took seconds to put that touchdown on the board. And of course, that touchdown was the only score in the first half. And like I said, that was really the difference in the game, as both teams had 2 touchdowns. Stafford threw 2 touchdowns in the second half. Todd Gurley ran for 2 touchdowns on the other side. And that was really where both teams were getting the bulk of their production. Of course, St. Louis was all on the ground. But of course, the Rams putting pressure on Stafford, especially Aaron Donald, really getting after the quarterback. But the Rams with the win, and they come away with this one. And the Rams, all they really need is a quarterback. That's really been the issue there in St. Louis. It actually kind of reminds me of the Rams back when they would eventually become the greatest show on turf, when they had all that talent, but they were just missing the quarterback. And then out of nowhere came Kurt Warner, from bagging groceries to Super Bowl champion. And that's the kind of thing that the Rams need to happen again. They need to somehow they got to start searching grocery stores for somebody who can play quarterback. But that's really been their issue. Of course, Sam Bradford was always injured, and then Nick Foles hasn't really gotten it done, and he's also has his injury issues. Now they've got Case Keenum, so you got to guess that the Rams are probably going to draft a quarterback, but we shall see. Maybe they're going to go after Brock Osweiler if the Broncos end up letting him go to free agency, but we'll see about that. But anyway, let me know what you think in the comments section below. Definitely interested to read your thoughts and opinions. Thank you very much for listening. It's greatly appreciated. I hope you're having a good day and having a great weekend and enjoying all the sports.